And it's going to pull the curtain back, specifically on the lost 100 years of these technologies. And it's going to go all the way back, more than 100 years, to the Stubblefield Earth battery. And Nikola Tesla standing there with his old farmer, where he's running his whole farm on this device where he has stakes in the ground that are tapping into this electromagnetic and mostly magnetic flux field and running generators running his farm. This is 1902.
This is 1902?
1902. And Nikola Tesla's standing there. I got the picture. This documentary is going to blow. It goes from that all the way to the Lockheed Skunk Works devices that started being built in the 50s. We have witnesses and transcripts of the Norton Air Force Base show, California. Norton's closed now. But they had an air show in 1988 where there were 3 of these man-made UFOs, ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles, hovering in this hangar. And those, we have those fully illustrated. We have enough detail. We actually have the schematics of the interior.
You have the schematics of the interior?
And the exterior, how they look. And these were built, interestingly, the witness who was there was an aerospace designer. Saw that the components in it, now this is 1988, were from the late Mercury era, so the Mercury capsule, which was late 50s, early 60s. And they had markings and charts on them where they had been out in space around our solar system. They were specifically told these had gone through the solar system. Now those were from the late 50s, early 60s. No jet fuel, no rockets. So this is going to be shocking. It's going to be a shocking. Well, we're going to actually have a lot of the devices going through the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s that weren't the flying devices. But I'll give you an example. There was an inventor named Floyd Sweet, and he had a solid state device, looked like a little bigger than a cigarette pack, that you could attach on an electric motor, say for a car. It wasn't plugged in. Once it got going, it was a 0 point quantum vacuum flux, and it would run a 300 horsepower motor. So imagine having a 300 horsepower motor in your Tesla or your truck, and this little and there are no batteries. You don't have 900 pounds of lithium-ion batteries, and the lithium-ion batteries really are destroying the environment. And you never have to plug it in. About the time he was going to get, he was meeting with some people at GM who thought they were interested, but they were actually just trying to find out what he had. After that meeting, he died suddenly, suspiciously.
How?
People claiming, well, he dropped dead of a heart attack. And that was plausible because he was an elderly guy.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, he had had an assassination attempt. He was going up some steps, and a sniper was trying to shoot it, but he didn't know it, but he tripped just as the bullet went right past his head. And we have the testimony of a lieutenant colonel who was involved in this case, who is a physicist also. This is going to be shocking to people.
Oh, yeah.
It's utterly shocking.
You know, these mysterious deaths, some people are like, oh, you know, that, no way. Well, it does. We talked about the Epstein stuff. Let's talk, you know, the guy that invented the hydrocar, gone.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, there have been so many. I've worked with people.
And then there was...
who've done that.
If you could refresh my memory, but wasn't there somebody else that disappeared and they just happened to be involved?
Yeah, there have been a number of folks where things get set up like that around them. There was a guy doing up this recent in New York where there was a man who had recreated this water fuel cell where your car could run off water. Yeah, and just bizarre stuff. So one of the problems with all these inventors,
I mean, it's not a coincidence.
No, these are hits.
Yeah.
But the problem is that if you're a brilliant electromagnetic engineer, but you don't know the bear you're about to poke with that technology and what they'll do to keep it suppressed, you're destined to fail. So one of the reasons we're doing this documentary is to provide the context so that people who do have these devices come to us, and we have a strategy that we briefly outline in this documentary of how to fix this problem. Well, how do you fix it? The big mistake people make, they try to patent it. And we have actually a national security order denial on a patent of one of these devices from an inventor I know. So we're going to prove this is not a conspiracy theory. Here it is from the patent office. So they ain't going to allow it. It gets confiscated. We have a patent examiner who's a PhD physicist testifying that they confiscate these things. That's in the movie. And then we say, okay, how are you going to get it out then? If you try to keep how it operates secret, then you're very vulnerable. So one of the things I did for the disclosure project for my own security is to decentralize everything I have. It's called detargeting. So why have a big bullseye on your ass when if you were to disperse all your information and intelligence, which I have done, it would still be out there. Moreover, you create a dead man trigger. So since the 90s, I've had a dead man trigger of stuff I'm holding back. If something happens to me, that hits the internet, and every celebrity that supports what we're doing, that can reach 1 billion people, they get it, and they put it out on Instagram, and boom. You know, and this is stuff they do not want out.
Mm-hmm.
It's names, it's stuff that I have not released, and where, and who. But people say, why don't you release it? I said, well, you know, this is one of my insurance policies. Well, what these inventors don't get is that they don't do that. They have no SecOps, so they have no security protocols. They just think I have a better mousetrap, the world's going to be a path to my door. When in reality, Murder Incorporated beats a path to their door, okay? Or it just gets confiscated. Most of the time, it's not even that. They're so crazy. They think, we're going to keep this secret. Nobody will know how it works. And I'm going to just sort of be able to get it out there without no one proving it. And I said, no. If you're making an outrageous claim that you're pulling energy out of the space around us, it's got to be released for scientific review. It's got to be reproduced by multiple labs and people who are skilled in the art. You got to open source it. Open source means it's just out there. At the first level. Now, maybe at the second level, you could patent, because then the whole world knows. So what we're proposing is that at a level 1 phase of these new technologies coming out, we're going to leave the things that fly alone, because those could be missile delivery systems. But the things that would run your house or car, whatever, a boat, a truck, those need to come out like 100 years ago. So the way to do it, and this we outline, is that we would disclose it publicly on blockchain protected systems, massively, multiple celebrities. And the first 20 of these devices we would reproduce would be running Demi Lovato's home, or Leo DiCaprio's house, or Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters, or whoever, all these people interested in the subject. Why? Because the media could suppress this, but you can't suppress dozens of celebrities with 1 billion followers.
Yeah.
Got it? I mean, sort of like, it's a very well thought through strategy. It's unconventional. Because my view is, you put a boulder in front of where we're trying to flow, you just, if you're water, you just flow around it.
No, I mean, it makes perfect sense. Even if they do try to suppress it, once, because they could take the post, they could take the video, it's already been out there.
Out.
So many people have already seen it. They would have to delete the accounts before it gets out.
Well, they'd have to tear down the whole internet. If you have, so our plan would be to have a multi-nation, multi-site, blockchain-protected release of the schematics, how it works, everything about it, so anyone could reproduce it, if you know how to do that. I mean, I couldn't even make a toaster oven.
How many people do you think are out there that know how to produce this kind of technology?
Oh, hundreds.
Hundreds,
maybe more. Over the years, there have been thousands of these devices that have come and gone. Most of them, people just take it to their grave because they don't understand the strategy of what they need to do. So they'll make a deal with someone financially, and that someone is fronting for another interest that suppresses it, buys it out. It's called black shelving. Happens all the time in the corporate world. You want something that's a competition, you create a corporate entity, you fund it, get controlling interest in it, and then you just put it on black shelf. I know of multiple devices that would literally save humanity and the planet that's happened to. So you can't do it that way, because the legal and financial traps are real. The national security applications that have been abused under the patent law are real. The lost century, this film is going to prove all this. To the extent that the public, and it's an hour and 48 minutes, but it's all there. So I think that what we're asking people is another ask. If you know of someone, or you have one of these systems, get it to us. We have a strategy and the contacts to get it out. Now, the second level, people say, well, I did all this work. I just want to make money on it. I said, that is the second phase. So once it's disclosed publicly, it's a little bit like DARPA creating the internet. So everyone uses the internet, and there's no one who owns the internet. But now that whole platform has created dozens of billion and trillion dollar companies, right? That's what needs to happen here. Because I think we have it, if we're lucky, 20 years to make this transition.
Why do you say that?
Because the rate of decay of the biosphere, but also the geopolitical problems we're facing, when you have this growing number of the world's population in utter despair and poverty, and it's all based on the fact of the zero-sum game of our energy and financial system. There's no changing that. I mean, if all 8 billion people on the planet live like you and I do, with air conditioning or trucks, the price of a gallon of fuel would be $100 a gallon. So the system we have now requires the geopolitical and military instability. It's a natural outgrowth, though. This is why, when I had this conversation with Senator Barry Goldwater, who was the senior senator from Arizona who ran for president in 1964 and lost, John McCain took his seat. And I was at his home in Paradise Valley. I was just there this week, but this was back in the 90s. And he said, it was a goddamn mistake then and a goddamn mistake now this was ever kept secret. And because he and I had this long afternoon discussing this and what the implications of the secrecy have been, but also what are the wonderful implications of fixing this. It's nothing less than starting a whole new chapter in human civilization, where in 20 years, there'll be no poverty on the planet, no pollution, unbelievable abundance. Because if you bring to zero the cost of energy, of transportation, manufacturing, you're creating a global economy that's decentralized, where every village, home, whatever, is self-sufficient. This is sort of a libertarian's dream, right? But it's also an environmentalist dream. But I tell people this crosses all the political left-right stuff if you understand what's at stake here. So in this one movement, you solve some of the environmental existential problems we're facing. You're going to solve a lot of these geopolitical problems with oil and oil supply, Mideast, Russia, gas. But you're also going to, in a real sense, liberate the world from the current system so it can flourish without it being a handful of centralized choke points for energy. That's the plan. Now, to do it, you need to have something that works. And I always tell people, a lot of people say, well, here's a black box and take my word for it. I go, no, I don't take the word for it. On something this important, it's got to be, we have to have the plans for it, we have to reproduce it, and we have to be able to have other people, third party, and reproduce it, and it should work as advertised. Most of these inventors don't want to do that because they don't know anything about science. But the sine qua non of science is independent verification and proof, and that's the other problem. A lot of these people have these inventions, but they keep the sauce secret. But no one's going to believe it. Why should they? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Now, because I've gone into labs and had it tested, I know they exist, but they don't want to turn over the secret to the public because they're paranoid about having it's like Gollum. We use this in the movie, My Precious Ring, remember the movie? Yeah. And it's like they're trying to protect that, but they don't understand. If they could get it out to the whole world as an open source, let's say proof of principle system, the next phase, they could then create specific product that could be patented. Why? Because now the public would demand it. The scientific community would have it, and the public would say, I want that. I want that thing running my F-150 truck.
Yeah.
So I'm not spending $100 to fill it up if you're a carpenter. I'm my dad. So that is something that, becomes a really powerful solution. We're spending trillions of dollars on, frankly, fake environmental solutions.
I know you're right because we actually covered, I did an episode on environmental solutions, which could help with fires, could help with world hunger, it could help with a lot of things, and it got zero attention. And these guys have been walked into Congress, have been walked into the Senate. Nobody gave them the time of day, and
they need to contact here. If someone has something like this, and the reason they need to contact us is that I've worked with inventors since '91 who have had some version of these, and there's a certain number of known fatal mistakes they make that I'm outlining. So what I've tried to do, create a strategy that accounts for those mistakes, and it's kind of unconventional because most people, when they get something like this, oh my God, I have to keep it secret, I got a patent, I got to do this. No. You take it quickly, because the most dangerous point is when you have something that works, but you don't have millions of people who know about it yet. That's the window where it can be confiscated, where your lab can be firebombed, where it can be stolen, where you can be imprisoned, or killed, or whatever. So that is just plain not smart. Now, to most people don't know that 800-pound gorilla's out there ready to squash you like a wormy apple. They go, oh, I'm great, I'm fine as frogs here. And until they get hit with these things.
How many of these devices have you seen personally?
Maybe a dozen or so over the years that have been legitimate.
Can you describe what a couple of them look like?
Well, one of them will be in this documentary, and it was out in the desert of Arizona. I was there in September of 2022, and this old guy had out there, it looked like a shoebox, and it was sitting there running. It'd been there for 2 years, putting out 3 kilowatts of power.
Really?
The average home on average uses about 1.5 kilowatts.
What's inside of it?
He had some fake circuits so that nobody could steal his little secret ring, like Gollum, Lord of the Rings. And there were some specialized magnesium alloy plates. And it was basically resonating with the magnetic field, sort of similar to what Tesla did with the Wardenclyffe, his big Wardenclyffe system, but a much higher tech version.
What was the Wardenclyffe?
That was what Nikola Tesla had out on Long Island. That was this wireless transmission of power, and it was pulling power from the magnetic field of the Earth and converting it to electricity.
Okay.
And that all eventually got blown up. But Tesla had amazing breakthroughs. One of the things we're going to show in this documentary, people think it's an urban myth, that the FBI raided his apartment when he died and confiscated all his secret papers. I have the Department of Defense letter to the FBI demanding that the FBI turn those over to them. That's going to be in the documentary.
This is all going to be in the documentary?
Yep.
Back to the box. Does it make any sound? How does it hook up to?
The only thing you hear are the things it's running. He was running air conditioners and lights and this and that. We had no wires going into it with any power. The startup battery was a little teeny 3-volt that you could take out once it was running. And
how does it connect?
For what?
To air conditioners, to
conventional wires. It had 110 and 220.
Okay.
And then so it could run anything. You could run your house, you could run your car.
How did this guy have it hooked up? Was it did he have it wired into the fuse box or what?
No, he had no, because he didn't want to have that on the grid. When he did it on the grid, the power company saw that there was something going on, thought that there was a solar panel tied into the grid that wasn't legal because you have to get a permit. And so he had it off. He had his own workshop, another part out on his property, just running independently off of it.
Okay.
So all the wires, air conditioning, refrigerator, everything.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And so but his strategy is to keep it secret. And he said, well, if someone got this and tried to figure out what was going on, I have a circuit in there so it destroys itself. It's this sort of paranoid inventor stuff, right? Which I get. He spent a lot of time and money and his life's work. But I say, dude, this is how you take this to the grave. He's elderly. So what I have seen over and over again is very frustrating. is dozens of these accounts where they got it to a certain point. No one knew exactly how they were doing it. They kept all that secret. Next thing you know, someone's bought it off, they've died, or whatever, and it's lost forever. So we have to break this cycle. It's a crazy cycle.
You've seen a couple, around a dozen, I believe you just said. Are they all very similar?
Oh no, they're very different ways. There are like probably 18 ways to skin this cat.
Really?
Yeah.
Are they all small, compressed, size of the shoebox type?
Nope, there's some that are big rotary systems that are
Really?
bigger. Yep. So you'll see in the documentary, I think we feature maybe a dozen of them historically that have existed with photos and videos and test results. It'll be an interesting documentary for people who we want to pull the curtain back on those systems all the way up to the reverse engineering and the things that fly that Lockheed Skunk Works and Northrop Grumman and these Raytheon have.
This is going to be, I cannot wait to see this documentary. It's coming out in June.
June 6th.
June 6th. Then you have June 12th.
Yes, so 6 days later, we're going to have a National Press Club event, again, Disclosure 2.0 in Washington, D.C.
I would love to be there for that.
Yeah, well, you're invited. And we need many media people and podcast people there. The weekend before, that's a Monday, that weekend before on the 10th and 11th, we're going to have a conference open to the public where we'll be unpacking the intelligence archive, everything we've collected. Right now it's about 5 or 6 terabytes.
Okay.
It's huge. It's like crazy. Tens of thousands of government documents, photos, videos, drawings, and testimony of, I think we have 109 cases of crash retrievals where
109 cases?
Yep. And you'll see, when you see the drawings and what the military guys described and the retrieval of these, that's all going to be there.
Now, are these all these people that are bringing this information to you, and I think there's going to be a lot more because the whistleblowers, for your call out, where are all these people coming from? Are they all from the U.S.? Are they coming from all over the world?
Some have
Primarily.
been Canadian, Australian, UK. We have a big Russian file from the KGB era that was given to me. That's in the archive. Very interesting cases, landing cases. Marina Popovich, who was Pavel Popovich's wife, they were both cosmonauts, had encounters in a case where one landed, an extraterrestrial vehicle landed, and we have all that information. I flew her over in 1995 for this Project Starlight gathering, the very first gathering of these whistleblowers and witnesses. And then in 97, we did it again as for members of Congress off-site in Georgetown. Then, chairman of committees were there. At that stage, none of them had coalesced into a movement to get where we are now. And then in 2001, we did the National Press Club event. So this has been an evolving process. Mm-hmm. That's, when people say, when do you think this will be done by? I said 1993. So 30 years ago, in my optimism and naivete, I thought, well, if I put the best evidence together, that's what we called it for the president at the time. It was Clinton, the CIA director, all these guys. The best available evidence, BAE. You'll see that in markings on some of my notes that are in this archive. We're also going to release all those documents.
Last night at dinner, we discussed some of this, and you had mentioned that you have video of an extraterrestrial being dissected.
Photo. It's a photo.
Excuse me.
That is very strange from 1920s. The provenance of that is very interesting. A woman contacted me, and her grandmother had worked at at the Trinity site on the Manhattan Project. But then they got moved to Roswell. And her mother was there when those 3 craft went down. We found 2 of them. One wasn't found until 1951. And by the way, that was an early DEW, directional energy weapon, that downed those. And people say, they crashed in a thunderstorm. I'm quite sure if you can go through interstellar space, you can navigate an Earth-based thunderstorm. But I have a document, and this is in the unacknowledged book, of a field agent writing to J. Edgar Hoover about this so-called Roswell event, saying that these flying saucers, they called them, discs, crashed because we had switched on a new, quote, radar system. So for those people who don't know, radar is often a euphemism for both a system to detect objects bouncing radio waves off of aircraft, but also in some of them are active warfare systems, electromagnetic warfare systems. So they had an early electromagnetic system in that new radar system. And this field agent, Guy Hottell, Hottel, wrote to J. Edgar Hoover as a field agent. I have that document. When I released it, the FBI had to release it. It became the most watched, looked at document on the FBI site. But it flat out says that's what happened. So that woman, the grandmother, somehow went from the Manhattan Project to being at Roswell. Well, why? In 1947, the Roswell Army Air Base, it was before the Air Force was formed, was the only atomic bomb squadron in the world, the 508th Squadron, and the whole planet. So she was there. She followed that operation from the origins of the atomic bomb, out at White Sands and out there, to New Mexico. So when that event happened, apparently someone must have brought in, this is conjecture now, some kind of archive of previous encounters with these objects that went way back. And someone in the photo lab took a picture of a picture. We've proven that's what it is. And it's a extraterrestrial on a dissection with a group of doctors and what looked like some suits in the background. And we've had the top medical historian in the world look at the equipment, the suits, the gloves, and dated it from between 1922 and 29. Now, the rest of it we don't know. We don't know what event that was, where it was taken. We're trying to track down the personnel that are in there, but we're talking 100 years ago.
What does the ET look like? Does it have arms? Does it have legs?
Yeah, arms,
fingers,
legs,
eyes?
head. The head is covered with a towel. Apparently it was badly mutilated. It had a weird, almost like a spine on the front, like we have a sternum, that you could see, like a bumpy thing. Different hands and feet.
2 arms?
2 arms, 2 legs.
legs?
Oh yeah, they're all like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And not tiny. I think it was around 5 feet. It's hard to tell from this photo. So we have a lot of material like this. It's going to be in there.